Creating a pivot table. To create a pivot table, we must first have a list of data. By a list, we mean headings across the top of the data, and then the list falls underneath. Make sure that there's no completely blank rows in your list, so as I scroll down, I don't see a complete blank row until the end of my list, which is correct. I then go to the Insert tab at the top, and the very first icon in the Insert tab is to insert a pivot table. And we can see here we've got Pivot Table and Pivot Chart. I'm going to create a pivot table, so I click on this, and it asks me to select a table or a range. It's selecting A1 to H50, which is correct. This is worth checking to make sure that it does encompass your entire range of data. Then it's going to decide to put the pivot table into a brand new worksheet. That's where I want to put it, so I click on that and press the OK button. Down below we can see now it has added a brand new sheet called Sheet 1, and on the far right it's opened up the Pivot Table Field List panel. Here we can see a list of the headings that were part of our list initially, and also it's divided up an area into 4 squares. Column labels, row labels and values are the most important 3 of these boxes. First we have to decide what it is we want as our column labels. For example, we might want to see our regions as our column labels, north, south, east, west. If that's the case, you can simply click and drag and drop region into this section here. Once you do this, you should see now on your sheet that you have north, south, east and west as column headings across the top. Now we're going to decide what row labels we want down the side. So again, we look at our list and maybe products is what we want, so I click and I drag product down into my row labels, and now I can see the products appearing as row headings on the left hand side. Finally then we need to fill the information into the middle of our table, and they are the values. We'd like to see the sum of our sales per region per product, so I'm going to bring down the word sales and I'm going to drop it into the value section, and we see sum of sales now appearing in the middle in line with our north, south, east, west per product. You'll notice that by default we also get grand totals per region and grand totals per product, with a sum of sales then right down on the bottom right hand corner. So this is the makings of the pivot table itself. At any point you can drag these headings off and drop them to delete them, and then bring down a different column label instead. So for example, I might decide to bring down salesperson instead, and then we can see salespersons across the top as opposed to the regions. So it's a simple drag it and drop it and pull something else down in order to see it coming in instead. So you can mess around with the different areas until you've got them into the right column, row and value section. Report filter then is another section that will appear at the top of your table, and it allows you filter the entire table. So for example, if I bring salesperson down into report filter, we'll see up at the top here now it says salesperson all. So the information we're seeing in our table is for all salespeople. If I click on the drop down arrow, I can change this to only show the information for individual salespeople. So for example, for this salesperson, press OK. So for this particular salesperson, now this is the information that you'll see purely for that person. Change the person here, and it changes the information in the table. So the section here called report filter is where we can go if we want to filter the information within the table. Clicking onto the main spreadsheet will deselect the panel from the right hand side. So if you need to make any changes to the pivot table, you select a cell inside the pivot table for the panel to reappear. As we go through this course, we'll look at the different options and design settings that we have for pivot tables once we have them inserted on the page. It's really important before you begin that you know what it is you're trying to do. You know what your column labels and your row labels are going to be, and you know what values you want inside.